I've
Uh-oh.
lost you though.
There we go. Welcome. That's what it does. It freaks me out every time we start recording because it glitches and you think you lost your feed and then all of a sudden it comes in. So welcome everybody. Today's interview for the podcast is Livia. Hi, Livia. Please introduce yourself to the group.
Hi, everybody. My name is Livia, and I am a singer-songwriter making, I tend to call it sort of pagan pop music, and I'm from the UK, as you can probably tell.
Well, welcome. I am so excited to have you today. We don't have Ju joining us. I'm not exactly sure why. I tried to get a hold of her, but she did email me and say that I might have to do it by myself. So hopefully she's just busy. So, you know, on the podcast so far, we've had like variations of light workers. However, I seem to be noticing a theme of divine feminines. It would be nice to start seeing some divine masculines emailing in and saying, hey, I'd like to be interviewed. So Liv does actually resonate with being a divine feminine, which she will bring into the conversation, I'm sure, whenever it's appropriate. But I'm going to go ahead and give the platform over to you. You can introduce yourself and how, kind of where it all began for you and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. Oh, all right. So this is quite a long story. So I'll start at the beginning. So I had, I guess, what you call quite a normal childhood. I grew up in suburbia in London, but I was always quite a different kind of child, I think. I always was very sensitive to people's emotions and quite easily overwhelmed by situations. And I never really understood why as a child. And I was very artistic, very creative. Had wonderful parents, good relationship with my parents and my brother. But when I started school, I was bullied. I pretty much very quickly I started to be bullied because I was very quiet and I would keep myself to myself, and I was quite introverted, but I was also quite academic, and so I think people saw me as a target, I guess. And the bullying really started when I was about 7, and I developed quite serious OCD symptoms to cope with it. I used to wash very seriously in the morning to try and avoid going to school, I think. But I managed to get through school, and then I went to the next level up and I did all my exams. But I was always very, very angsty, had a lot of anxiety, a lot of OCD, a lot of things I was hiding, I suppose, but I was very good at sort of performing my way through things. And the place that I always put all my feelings into was I channeled it into music always. And I gravitated towards other musicians and usually the oddballs at school. We all kind of congregated together, all the people that were different and whatever, and not the popular people. And I was very sad. I was very lonely, but I continued to sort of. I did well at school. I put everything I had into work. I was a very adult child. I didn't really sort of find being a teenager easy. I always felt like I had a mission and I needed to do things. So I was always following my musical path. And then I left school and I had all these sort of, I guess, anxiety issues. And I knew that I only wanted to do music. I didn't want to go to university or anything like that. But there weren't really any places I could go and do music that was sort of like pop or rock at that time. If you wanted to do music at university, you had to do sort of classical stuff. At that time, it's changed a lot, but back then. And so I really didn't know what to do. And I ended up, I suppose, for want of a better way to describe it, having a bit of a breakdown. I was 18. I didn't really, I had a bit of an eating disorder. I, didn't really know where I fitted in. And I had a few years of really meandering, lost, still trying to find that place where I wanted to do music, but not really knowing what I was doing. So then after a couple of years of starting some courses and then, that not going well and trying to deal with all my anxiety issues, I got picked up by something called an artist development program here in the UK, which is basically this company that takes people on, gives them vocal tuition and time in the studio. So for the first time in my life, I was suddenly doing everything that I wanted to do. I was getting time in the studio, getting to write, take the songs that I'd written since I was 16, and you just really getting the chance to learn a bit about the industry. And so that was really starting, and I really started to come out of my shell, and I felt like finally, I'm on the right road. I feel like this is where I belong. I'd had some time in therapy because of my anxiety issues, and I'd written a song called Broken Soul, which was about that experience, which was meeting all these incredible people that were a little bit broken, but we're still fighting on. And I felt that was something I wanted to put into a song. So that was the first song I ever wrote at this artist development place. And I started to notice that as I was writing songs about mental health issues, people were really resonating with that. So I definitely felt like I was on the right road. So this is where it starts to get a bit kind of crazy, because as I was coming out of my shell and starting to play music, I bumped into somebody who I had known at school, who was, I think, the year below me. He was a guitarist. And we had known each other. We were all, always part of the backbone of the music scene at school, but I wouldn't say I knew him really well. And he got in touch with me. I joined Facebook, and he was the first person who friended me. And he was like, well, I'm in a metal band. Do you want to come and see me play? And I was like, oh, heavy metal, I don't know. I'm still coming out of my shell. I was kind of shy. But he said, I play guitar, maybe we can do some music together. And I thought, yeah, that person from school, that's fine. There was never any indication of what was to come from the fact that we knew each other at school.
Right.
But I went along to meet him at this bar in our local area. Do stop me, I can rabbit, but is it okay to carry on?
Rabbit, yeah. The best stuff happens in the rabbit holes.
Oh gosh, yes, it is a long story. We're going 15 years back now, so I've been on this journey a long time. So he invited me to go and see his band, and I thought, yeah, fine. And it was at a bar called Inferno's, which had all these things up the side of the building. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it. But looking back at it now, you just think, okay, here were the startings of some signs. And so obviously, I hadn't seen him since we were 17, and I guess we were about 24, 25 at this point. And I just remember him walking out, because I'd forgotten to take my ID to this bar because I wasn't used to going out. And so they didn't think that I was over 18, which I was quite pleased about at 24. But he had to come out basically and rescue me on the door. And this 6'3" guy walked out, totally different from when we were at school, where he was a head shorter than me. And he had these really intense blue eyes. Oh, and it was like, you know what I mean? It was like that awakening that you were talking about before, just like this recognition. I was really surprised, because I had known him before, sort of. I was really surprised to have that kind of reaction, and it was very significant. And it was the same back for him as well, but we didn't really talk about it at the time. We were just like, oh, hi, and just kind of carried on with the evening. And from there, we started hanging out for a bit. I'd say over the course of about 18 months, starting to play music together, and kind of discovered that we did have a very big chemistry on a lot of levels, I suppose you would say. But it was very confusing, and it was my first experience of anything, and he was the polar opposite. He seemed to be quite a ladies' man, really. He was like not at all on paper what I would be looking for. He lived the rock star life, all that kind of stuff, and I was very new to it all. But it was a very intense thing between us, and it was almost like when we were in the same room together, it was too much. We couldn't really sit next to each other without feeling, both of us, like this. And it took us quite a while to talk about that. And all the while he had these girlfriends that kind of came and went, so I wouldn't get involved with him. But it was obviously there between us. It was kind of like an elephant in the room, and it was all tied up with the music. And it really started to change the way I was writing songs as well. He became a bit of a muse to me, I suppose. All these emotions that I was suddenly triggered to feel. But every time it would be like, are we going to kind of get together or whatever? He would usually, what I now know is called running, and he would sort of put up these barriers, or he would say things that were very confusing, because it was like he did want to be with me, but it was almost, but he never wanted to he just couldn't bring him, like he would sort of say things like, you know, I don't think I can do this, or, you know, I don't want to hurt you, or blah, blah, blah. And it was always like he was pushing me away. So it was very confusing, and I didn't know what to make of it. And then about sort of, I'd say 18 months into it, we did start sort of doing like closer boyfriend, girlfriend type stuff. And then he really kind of ran from it, pulled the plug on it, and said, like, I can't be in a relationship with you and do music. I can't. And it really, really devastated me, because I'd started to build a dream around it all. And, you know, everyone's come to me, oh, you know, it's just your first love, and that's, you know, that's what's happened, and this is just heartbreak. But I don't know, it felt very strange to me that I even felt that way, because it wasn't like we were even properly official or anything. It just felt, I couldn't really get him off my mind, and I didn't understand why. And he started seeing somebody else very quickly, which really upset me. And at that point, I thought to myself, well, I need to leave this person's life. I can't be here. You know, he wanted to carry on playing music. I couldn't do that. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to leave, and that's going to be the end of it, and everything's going to be fine. We'll just go our separate ways. And that is when the craziness started, because when I separated myself from his life, like, no joke, like books were falling off shelves and opening at his name. I was seeing signs everywhere. I went into what I now understand is called dark night of the soul. But at the time, I just thought I was losing my mind. I was really, really depressed. Nobody really knew what to do with me. And my parents, you know, kind of saw me going backwards into, you know, my kind of OCD and anxiety, which I'd started to get rid of as I was performing more and being out there. And within 6 months, you know, like, I was sitting in the waiting room of a mental health hospital, because my parents were like, well, we don't know what to do with you. You've got to get help, blah, blah, blah. And that was a horrific experience, because I don't know what it's like over where you are, but here the mental health service, you know, is not in great shape. It's just
So hold on.
a experience of sitting there and thinking, I thought I found the love of my life, and suddenly he's with someone else, and, you know, I'm sitting here depressed, and, you know, it was just awful. I couldn't seem to help myself. And yeah, all I can say is it just put an enormous rocket under me, because I felt like, even though my life was falling apart, as an artist, you kind of know that whatever you go through is for the greater good of your music, and you need to channel that, you know. And so although my personal self was completely on my knees, my artist self was really like, no, we've got to write. And I just wrote and I wrote and I wrote everything that I was going through. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now learning so much more about this phenomenon, I was doing the ascension part, I suppose. I was kind of naturally doing that, because, as I say, as an artist, I think you have a little bit of an advantage, because you know whatever you go through, even the crap stuff, is something you can use.
Right.
So it was a very strange time. So I felt really split in myself, and at the same time I felt like I'd left half of myself behind, and I was, you know, just missing this guy terribly, and not even sure why, because it wasn't even like he'd, you know, hadn't particularly treated me well, you could say. And I just felt rejected, and, you know, everything. It was just like a complete death of my ego, which I understand is what dark night of the soul is. And I just literally felt like someone had put a sledgehammer to me, and I'd shattered into a million pieces. And everything I thought about life was just upside down. My relationship with my family had gone completely south. I didn't know where I was going with my life. You know, my musical partner had gone, so I didn't know what to do with my music, and my music wasn't safe anymore. That had always been where I channeled all my pain, and now he was all over that. He played on songs, or the songs were about him. Yeah, it was just really, really rough. And so I kind of see my music career has two halves. It has before him and what happened, and then after. And the irony is that it's the music I wrote after what happened through that experience and about him, and sort of having to heal from that and get over it, that is what has made me successful as an artist. Because so that was about 2009 that my life kind of crashed like that. It was my second breakdown, or dark night of the soul. And I started, as I say, was writing these songs, which was starting to get traction, hilariously. So my entire life, and yet my songs were starting to get picked up by bigger producers, and I got a message from a guy who's worked with Britney Spears and the Spice Girls, and he's quite a big name producer. And he heard my songs on MySpace, and he was like, oh, I'd really like to remix those and work with you. So my professional career started to, devastated still. I really miss this guy, and I knew that he was getting married, because of the wonders of Facebook, you can see everything, and I was still getting signs about him, and I could kind of sense what was weird. I could kind of sense what was happening in his life without being told. And then I would go and look and I would see, and I was just like, that's so weird. And I couldn't really tell anybody, especially because, mental health wise, I was already being looked at like, oh, she's a case, she's got depression, blah blah. And I daren't tell them I'm seeing signs, this won't go well. Right. So I really just kept it all to myself. And yeah, like I say, everyone was still like, oh, it's heartbreak. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that, I haven't heard anyone describe heartbreak quite like this, but fine. And the only place that I could find any kind of help with this was my local Wiccan shop. We have a shop in the area that, there's a high priestess that runs it. And I sort of stumbled in there in a bit of a mess and just sort of explained all of this to her. And she was like, okay, I'm going to give you a book and I'm going to give you this and see if it helps. And she started training me to use tarot, and like I really just think she noticed that I needed quite a lot of spiritual help. And I think she started to explain to me the term empath, about being someone who, because I never understood my sensitivity to things either, but until I started to learn about what an empath was. So my high priestess in the local shop was incredible. She really did save me at that time. And as I started to learn more about paganism, I realized that I'd always been a natural witch, I suppose, but never understood that that's what it was. So it was a real enlightening time of really, taking everything that I thought about myself and just finding that that wasn't the truth, and really getting to the heart of who I really was, and ending up on this very different journey. And I found that as I was getting signs about my twin, I guess you call him, it was also opening up a lot of psychic abilities in lots of other areas too. And they'd be things, I would see signs about things, I would follow them, and they would be for the next step in the music journey. And it was just incredible how that started to piece together. So it was, but at the same time, I was still healing. I was still traumatized, carrying a lot of post-traumatic stress from the near sectioning and everything that I'd gone through with that. Still trying to, I was trying to date other people. I was trying to, find my way there. I was, still nursing my broken heart about it all. And yeah, I mean, for 15 years, that's pretty much how it's been. It's been this journey of trying to put it all behind a wall, and because I didn't realize what it was, and I guess run, because I think that's what I became. I think we were talking about before, with you saying that. I think that on this journey, you do go from chaser to runner quite a bit, because it just gets so much. And we did reconnect again about 10 years ago, and I won't go into too much about what the circumstances of that, because it's not really fair to talk about somebody else's personal life. But safe to say, it looked like we were going to reconnect, and it kind of looked like we had missed each other, and we were able to put things on a level. And then he stopped talking to me again, and the next thing I knew, he'd kind of gone back to the life that he had seemingly been leaving, and he didn't communicate to me, and I felt completely rejected again. And and then from there, I just thought in myself, I have to draw a line under this. And I attempted to put it all behind a wall. I just thought, I don't even want to think about any of this anymore. And that's the point where I think I began to run. And my career had started to take off by this point. The pagan music industry kind of started to embrace my music, and I started touring my album that I was recording, and I put a show together, and I had these incredible dancers that dance with fire and all sorts of things. We put on a real sort of visual show that promotes my music. And in 2014, we really started sort of promoting that heavily. And I was on tour for about 6 years, I suppose, doing festivals, magically themed festivals in the UK and pagan festivals. And we went, and we've been into America, and lots of really cool stuff was happening with my career. And I did succeed in putting the whole experience behind me to a degree, but I was still getting the odd signs here, there, and everywhere. But I was just on a rampage with my career, and I was just trying to stay focused on myself. And then that was all fine until the pandemic hit. And then when the gigs stopped and all the shows stopped and everything that I had been, you know, channeling my energies into stopped, it all started to creep back up again, and all the doors started opening. And then I think about 18 months ago, I got a sense that I should go, and I started seeing my twin's name everywhere again. And I was like, okay, well, surely I'm distant enough from this. I can go look at his social media, which I hadn't done for like over a decade. Because although I would call myself the chaser, at least at the beginning, because I was the one that wanted the structured romance and the relationship and stuff, I never did a lot of the things that I do hear chasers talk about constantly texting or anything. You know, I kind of have never been like that. I'm like, if you don't want to be in touch with me, that's fine. I'm not chasing you, kind of thing.
Right.
So I think I was a bit unusual in that. But and I never stalked his social media or anything like that. But I thought to myself 18 months ago, I was like, I'm sure I'm distant enough. And I went to look at his social media and I saw he had a family, and I just bawled for like a month straight. And everything that I had been holding in just kind of came out. And I realized that I hadn't dealt with it. I wasn't okay. I had been seeing signs that I'd been trying to ignore, which I think now was maybe my own soul kind of calling me back to it. But I was determined to not listen, because, you know, anything to do with him was always abject pain. So it was like, oh, no. And yeah, you know, I'd started another relationship, and I had other things in my life, and I really didn't want to open any of that can of worms. But there it was, all grown up again. And then I started learning about twin flames. Something I think came into I saw something on YouTube about it. And there's a really good YouTube channel, I don't know if you're aware of it, called New World All Star. And it's a fantastic channel for twin flames. And the guy on there was just explaining. I thought, oh, I wonder what this is. I was listening and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I've been through. And I suddenly started to realize what this whole thing was, you know. And so that was a real awakening for me, I think. So then I started to look back at the last 15 years with quite different eyes, because I was like, when it came to him, everything was so intense and far too much that I suppose I would often push it away, because it was just more than I could handle. I hadn't been expecting it. I didn't.
So you're glitching a little bit on this side. I don't know if you can hear me, but we seem to have glitches with Skype and Zoom. Only in the UK. Well, I shouldn't say only in the UK, but like there's been some of interviews we've done where they just were flawless, you know, there was no glitching at all. But I do notice that when we're farther apart, there seems to be a little bit of glitching. But for the most part, I understood every single word you said. Just so you know, when you watch it back, there is a little tiny bit of the glitchy stuff going on. But so isn't it amazing how spirit will bring us to the realization of the twin flame journey when the timing is right?
Yeah.
I met my twin when I was 12, and I, like you, I've been doing the runner chaser thing for 43 years, but I didn't know what a twin, I never heard of it, never in my entire life. And the funny thing was during my, you know, I guess you would say my dark night of the soul was brought on by the death of my mom and my sister. And so, and that's when he reappeared in my life after 20 years of, I didn't know if he was dead or alive, or, you know, even married, single, you know. And the funny thing was, in that 20 years, I would dream about him. Like he would come to me in my dreams and say, you know, I'm coming back, I'll be back. And I'm like, don't bother, you know, because I was angry at him, you know. You get angry, you're like, I don't need this in my life, don't bother. But yeah, it happened just the way he would tell me in my dreams too. He'd be like, you know, this, I'll be back. We're not done with this healing process, right?
Right.
And so I discovered about twin flames through, I don't even know the YouTube channel it was, but I was falling down rabbit holes about the whole pedophilia and you know, the dark stuff about, I don't even want to bring it up because once we upload this, they flag certain terms. But I was falling down some really dark rabbit holes, and I was raised Christian, and I was very devout in my religion, and so Spirit was slowly pulling at the loose strands of that belief system, showing me ways where it never really truly fully resonated with. And so anyhow, the long and short of it was I found this video that kept showing up over and over and over again in my suggested videos. 11 signs you've met your twin flame. And I had never heard of twin flames. I wasn't interested. I kept clicking, I kept bypassing it, didn't look at it. And then I started seeing billboards. There was one about abortions, and it's like, are you a twin, question mark, right? And it was about, and just the term twin kept showing up everywhere. And then Spirit led me to a YouTube explanation on algorithms and how the algorithms will shoot videos and suggestions at you of things you're interested in. And that was when, because I've always been, you know, gifted. I've been a psychic medium my whole life. I didn't understand that or embrace that until much later in life. But it was just an aha moment. I realized there were two videos. It was Rich Lopp's Aquarius video and the twin flame, 11 signs your twin flame. And I thought, why? If the algorithms only give you what you're interested in, and I haven't expressed any interest at all in this content, why does it keep showing up like like everywhere? It was on, you know, I kept seeing the 1111 and the term twin flame just kept showing up everywhere. And finally I decided, well, maybe it's Spirit trying to talk to me. Let's just watch it. And I clicked on it, and, you know, it was 11 signs. And I think I was into sign number 3, and I had a light bulb go off. And I was like, oh my God, I know that energy. And it's, you know, I don't know about how you felt about your twin, but I felt like I wanted to push him off a cliff and then rush to the bottom and catch him so I could do it all over again 10 more times. And it really was a love-hate thing. It was like, I didn't want him in my life. I didn't want to participate. And I was the runner for a long time. And then he was, and then I was, and then he was. And it's like you think you're done, right? 20 years I was married, raising a family, having children, and never ever, you know, considered that this would ever become something. And then, you know, every single time it was time to level up spiritually, I'll be damned if I didn't get a phone call or a text or run into him at a grocery and found out that he lived 7 miles down the road from me for 20 years, and Spirit never ever let us cross paths, not at a gas station or a red light or the local high school. Our kids went to the same school. Never. Until the timing was, you know, time to wake up, time to face those fears, you know. And so, yeah, it's intense. It's super intense. And I don't know, maybe you would like to describe, where are you currently in that? Like, are you still in separation? Are you communicating?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing to say, because at the moment, what I'm getting is still kind of more instinctive signs about things, and I can't really describe too many of the details of it, because again, it gives away somebody's personal life. I am getting a very strong sense that we are going to meet again quite soon. It's just something that I feel. And when I was taken back, when I started to see his name everywhere 18 months ago, and I went to look, I also saw some other things which made me kind of go, oh, okay, I think I know why I've been brought back in. And if it's okay with you, I won't go into what those were, because I don't think that that's fair. But and also because I can't be 100% sure, because so much of this makes you doubt yourself, you know what I mean? And until it plays out, I don't feel like I can say with any confidence yet. But suffice to say, I feel like when it blew up, it seemed like there was a good reason for it. And what I am seeing now as I work on the tarot line, like I was telling you, I started working for this tarot company, not at all with a mind to be talking about twin flames at all. That was something I was dealing with on my own. But I'd say about 1 in every 10 calls would come on the line. These people would be like, this is going to sound very strange. And then I would know what they were about to say. And they would start describing pretty much these situations that you and I know so well. And I started to realize, wow, okay, this is maybe not common, but it is much more common than you might realize. And so I found myself basically helping these twin flames to understand what was happening to them. And I've ended up being this sort of the specialist at my tarot company, because I'm the only one who kind of knows what it is. Because a lot of the other psychics were like, we haven't got a clue what's happening to this person. It's not a soulmate. It's not, you know, I don't know what's going on. And I'd be like, okay, does this and this happen? And they'd be like, yes. And then so we'd start to unravel. So I started to realize, there was a point to my meander off there, but I started to realize that it seems like a lot of twins at the moment are feeling like maybe moving back towards each other on some level. It seems like it's not just my journey or your journey. It seems collective almost, right. Starting to notice the pattern with that, I guess. So that's sort of my point. So I'm seeing that, and it's just like, okay, so what does that mean, and how does that look in my life now? Because to all intents and purposes, I thought I had moved past this. And right. You know, I mean, I've talked for ages. I've, you know, obviously just now on a lot of things, but there's a huge amount of detail I haven't even brought in, because you can't, you know, there's so much to it. You know, you need several days to talk about right. every part of it. But it's, I don't know. I mean, all I knew what to do with it was to just keep channeling it into my music. And you know, you can achieve a lot when you're running from things hard. You know what I mean? You can really, you know. And I now see the
masculine energy, right?
Yeah,
and the masculine energy is the energy of creating and doing. I mean, not creating because that's the feminine, but I mean the actual implementing.
Yeah.
And the doing, it is the runner, you know, in a sense.
Yeah. And I suppose that's what's confused me, because like I would have said, if you listen to all the things about the divine feminine and the chaser, I would definitely have put myself in that at the beginning. But I see what I've done in the last decade is kind of the masculine side of it, actually. It's me that's run hard. And so I don't know, because I hear conflicting things about that, you know, there is only, you know, you stick in your roles. But I certainly think that feminines can run, even if you don't switch roles. I think
I think both are. So, you know, would you say he's chased you?
I think he did at the beginning. And I think that when last meeting, actually look at it and stop, you know, actually through my rejection, I think he actually was trying to reach out to me, but I was so confused by the whole situation. It was such a mess. You know, he was married, and, you know, I mean, nothing untoward happened other than us reconnecting, but it was way more than I could handle. And I was trying to see somebody else, and I didn't, you know, I was in such a mess about it all that whatever he was saying to me, I just couldn't even fathom and believe. So I pushed it away. When I look back at it, I'm like, for goodness sake, you know, he was actually trying to reach out to you. And it's just, but you get to a point where it just becomes, you know, there's been so much back and forth and so much, you know, because if I'd known what I know now, it would have been very different. I would have handled it very different 10 years ago.
Are you sure? Because I know what I know now, and I'm very psychic, and I look at the energy, and so we're mirrors, right? So he mirrors. So the way I always looked at twin flames since I've discovered it, and not just discovered it, but I've had kind of a remembrance, I guess, of it. It's the divine mirror, right? It's if you have a fear of failure, they'll make you feel like a failure. Not because they're horrible people, but because they're your mirror. When you look at them, you see you. And so if you have a fear of abandonment, they'll abandon you. If you have a fear of commitment, they'll demand that you commit to them. And so I've kind of been working with the energy in such a way that when he does reach out, I'm like, okay, what do I need to see? Mirror to me. am I triggered? And so I see where he's at on his journey, and I see that he is in a karmic relationship. It's very toxic, and um, I just want to be the mirror. I don't know that I want a romantic connection with him, but I want to mirror back to him his fears. I want to participate in the way that he participated with me. So I say what I'm guided to say, and I do what I'm guided to do. And right now I've been guided to um, shine brightly and step into my power, and to um, say things like, don't choose her, don't choose me, choose you. What do you want? Right? What's important to you? I keep redirecting him back to go within. What's within you? What is out of alignment with who you are and what you want to create, and what are your fears around that, and why, why are you resisting the the opportunity, I guess, that knowing each other presents for us to look at those triggers and to figure out why, from a spiritual point of view. But, being the matrix, you hear about the matrix twin and the spiritual twin. And I honestly believe that he has been both, and I have been both. And so it is kind of, I believe the whole thing is an inner alchemization of our inner divine masculine, divine feminine. It's like, how can we show up in the world with confidence and with the ability to create what we want, and to have healthy boundaries, and to speak up for ourselves, and to know our value and our worth, and also be open to vulnerability, and the feminine attributes of creativity and psychic and telepathy, and unconditional love. There's got to be a balance, a middle way, where we're not too much of one or too much of the other. So I think the running and the chasing stops and finds a neutrality when you finally, become the adept. You just practice, practice, practice.
Yeah.
Spiritually, you see yourself falling out of alignment, which happened this weekend for me. Like, I was highly triggered because, you're right about the whole pandemic created the lockdown and put us all in our own energy, where as an empath, it's very difficult to kind of know where you end and other begins, and where other ends and you begin. And so for me, I was constantly wearing mask after mask after mask, and didn't know really who I was in the collective, because I was always absorbing everybody's energy. So being in lockdown was like, oh, so this is who I am. This is what I do. This is my routine. This is what I like and what I don't like. And I noticed that I didn't like television. I didn't want it on. I didn't want it in my home. I didn't like a lot of stuff. And it wasn't because I was being told not to like it. It was just a natural thing. I lost a bunch of weight. I started taking better care of myself. I started having past life recall. I started, I had taken like 3 classes trying to learn how to read tarot, and none of it worked for me. And then one day I just kind of remembered. It was almost like a remembrance, not a learning. And I just started looking at the energies, and it made sense more so than trying to memorize well, this card means this and this card means that. And so it's interesting to see where other divine feminines are right now, because, we've got Mars in retrograde. We've got Mercury just went retrograde. We also have a full moon coming up in 2 days in Cancer. And I am a Cancer sun, a Virgo moon, a Cancer rising, and a Virgo Venus.
I'm a Virgo too. I'm a Virgo too. So yeah.
It's so. Can you spell service to other? Right. And so I'm kind of curious to see how this full moon and these retrogrades are going to kind of work on the collective, because I do a lot of channelings during the new moon and full moons, and I do a channeled message from spirit, and there always seems to be a key theme, right? And I think when the moon is in Cancer, we're going to be looking at relationships. We're going to look at, how we run our home, how we nurture self and other. And so, yeah, I'm just kind of curious. So what is your sun sign?
I'm a Taurus.
Pardon me?
Taurus.
Taurus. Yeah, see, that's my north node. Maybe you can teach me how to reach my north node potential.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the Aries cusp as well, which is where I think I get a lot of my performing, sort of, because the fire, I definitely have that fiery edge, but I am on the Taurus side. And I think sometimes I take on more than I can perhaps cope with, and then my Virgo moon gets all like, oh my goodness, we've taken on too much, and gets overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting, everything you just said there. I think in terms of where I am, I feel like so much of this journey is about learning to balance that feminine and masculine energy. And I think the whole twin flame journey really is about, it's about evolving into yourself eventually. I mean, it starts off, you start thinking, oh, it's about this other person, and it's about this this only one for me. And actually what the whole thing is really about is about figuring out yourself. And right. you do that from the series of triggers that they give you, I suppose. Right. And some of that is good and some of that is absolutely awful. But I feel like as awful as being triggered again 18 months ago was, it has put me up the right way again. Right. Because although I was doing a heck of a lot in my career in the last decade, I wasn't looking after myself at all. It was like I was completely kamikaze and ungrounded. And to a degree, I think I needed to be that way, because if you have any inhibitions, you can't ascend really. Right. You do have to be able to push yourself to do those things. But I wasn't grounded, and I felt upside down for the whole of it. Like something was really wrong. So maybe that isn't total ascension, I don't know, but it certainly felt like it was what I was supposed to be doing. But I think when I got triggered, I kind of hit the ground again, and for better or worse, that's made me rebalance stuff. And now that I've learned about this and I understand what the hell the last 15 years has actually been about, and I've got answers, it doesn't make the situation any better, I guess, but I think it was obviously trying to shake me out of something, because there may well be more parts to this now. And I think before I understood this, if he had got in touch again, I would have ignored it. And I actually don't think that's the right answer. And if I'd realized all of this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have tried to run, because of course what ends up happening is you're running from yourself.
Right.
And I think even if it wouldn't have meant, necessarily a romantic union or all those things that you want, that your little, ego and self wants and stuff like that, and the part that does love them, I think I would have at least understood what the heck was happening, because the last time I saw him, that was 4 years after the whole thing had kicked off in the first place, and I was so traumatized by what had happened in those 4 years that I was just not even in reality. I wasn't on this plane when we met again, and it was just like it was far too much. And then that just sent me on this huge run, and I feel like it obviously was supposed to happen for my career, but personally it's really, my heart and my mind have been in a blender. And now at least I feel like I'm much more in alignment with myself again. I think I've been in alignment with my mission for a long time, but I'm now a little bit more in alignment with myself, at least. And so
I wonder if when we get to this place, and because, on my journey, like I said, it's been 43 years. So there's been a lot of separation in those 43 years. And when there is reconnection, it really turns our lives upside down, doesn't it? I don't know why, but I mean, apparently it's necessary, I guess. Phase 2, phase 3, whatever. I don't know how many phases this journey has, but I know now one thing that I've come to, I guess, be at peace with is the fact that whether we're in contact or not in contact, we're always connected. Yeah. Always. And I can feel when he's going through stuff. I'm sure he feels when I'm going through stuff. There's times when I just feel so melancholy and cry, and my life is going beautiful. There's nothing to be crying about. There's no, and I'm like, ooh, and the cool thing is being in the lockdown, I've learned the difference between my energy and other people's energy. And I'll do an energy check-in. I'm like, is this your energy? And I'm like, no, it's not. And so then I know I'm like, well, it's his. And I always seem to know when I'm going to hear from him before I hear from him. And like you said, you start seeing those signs and synchronicities, start seeing their names all over billboards and car bumper stickers and radio call signs. And it's like crazy. I've had songs literally that are ads on YouTube, ads, where the singer's name is the name of my twin and the songs, and I never had an ad before that was an entire song. Like it would just, most ads give you a little, 13, 14-second ad, and then says, click down here if you want to hear the rest of the album or whatever. And I would be up late at night working and just want to put some music on. And it was crazy how the entire song seemed like it was a personal note or letter to me from him. And I'm like, it's just crazy. And I'm at the point now where I don't know if physical union is even the point, to be honest. But I know that we take turns being each other's mirror. And I'm in a really good place right now, and I know he's not. So I'm like you, if he reaches out, I'm not going to run. I'm going to show up and say, well, what do you need? What are you going through? How can I help? Is there anything I can say or anything I can teach or role model or just commiserate?
Exactly. I see when I do tarot and stuff, when I don't tend to read for myself because I think that's a bit more difficult, but I see the Queen of Cups a lot, which I think will probably resonate for you. And whenever I ask questions about this, it's like, this is not about, either getting angry about everything that's happened, because sure, I have plenty of reason to, especially, after the way things went down the last time we saw each other. And so I do veer between all those emotions, feeling angry about it and then feeling devastated we're not together, and all those things. But when it comes down to it, what keeps coming through to me is like Queen of Cups. Just, this is not about your ego, this is about being there. It
Right.
seems like that seems important. So, and it's interesting. Yeah.
Well, it's that whole divine feminine unconditional love thing, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But it's also learning to be our masculine. See, they teach us healthy boundaries. They teach us to speak up for ourselves. They teach us how to say no. No, no, thank you. That behavior is not acceptable. And, we need to look at why. Why are you showing up in that behavior? Before, I always projected it on me. That's part of the journey, right? It's like, oh, I'm not lovable. I'm never chosen. And I'm always the third party. And now I look at it like, no, it's not me. I'm good. Right. I've really learned a lot about who I am and my own self-worth and self-value. And now I look at it like, how can I help you get to the place that I am? Because that's all I really want for him is his happiness, and for him to fall in love with somebody that loves him as deeply as he deserves. And I don't see that happening in his life, and it didn't happen in mine for a very long time. And so, I don't know. Like you said, it's kind of to be continued, right? Nobody really knows until you know. I don't know if 20 years, who knows, we could be put in the same nursing home someday, right? And oh, I remember you. Or we could just be friends for the rest of our lives, and he could find his happiness and I could find my happiness, and we could be happy for each other. I don't know. I know.
I know. It's really confusing, but I feel like whatever happens, you can't run from the energy of it, and on some level need to be in each other's lives. I think that's where I've got to. And it's weird because I think in some ways, like, I think he maybe understood this a little better than me at times as well. I think he did seem to have, I think maybe because he was a little bit more experienced than me, maybe he looked at things in a different way. I don't know. When I look back now, I don't think he ever wanted me to leave his life. I just think he didn't feel like together. I think it was too much for him, you know, whatever was going through. And that's what I mean by looking at it with different eyes and ears, because I go back and I'm like, actually, you know, some of the things he said were about us, you know, still being friends and still being in each other's lives. I just didn't feel like I could do that at the time with what I felt was between us. And although he was saying that, he also wasn't able to keep it as just friends anyway. So, you know, it wasn't like he was saying that and I just wasn't getting the message. He was not able to not, you know,
Well,
whatever.
the attraction is crazy. It's crazy. It really is like two halves of a whole that just won't quit until they find some semblance of connection, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What that connection will look like, I guess, is dependent on free will in each individual soul contract. I really don't know what mine is. I know that right now I'm happier than I've ever been. I mean, I'm in a very healthy, balanced relationship. And, you know, I keep looking, I keep thinking, is this another karmic lesson? Is this, you know, what am I supposed to learn from this? Is this going to be toxic? Do I have, but it seems to just work. And so I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I will always, always have unconditional love. Like there isn't any deeper love I could ever feel for a human being. You know, it's almost like a mother and child or a parent and sibling. I don't know. It's like that unconditional. You can do anything.
I've discovered, because you know, when I look at this, there are so many layers to this connection that you have with this person. Sometimes it does feel that parental thing. I don't know about you, but sometimes, like, he reminded me a lot of the men in my family, and he used to say I was a bit like his mum, or, you know, that I was, there's a familial aspect to it, and sometimes it does feel like the sibling, or, but then you've got this intense attraction. It's very confusing, and I think, you know, that's where I lost my mind, you know, when this first happened, because I, as a Virgo moon, I try and figure everything out.
Me too.
I have to know. I don't understand what this, you know, what this is. I must know. And so, you know, that's what sent me on a huge journey, understanding astrology and getting into tarot and all these kind of things. But my mind is like that. And I think the biggest challenge I have in this is about the surrender, is about actually, you know what, you can't have all the answers, and you can't think your way out of this one. There isn't, you know, if you go into your mind, then you lose it.
So I channel, and I guess I'm channeling ancestors, or I don't even ask anymore, because I've had so many higher beings in and out of my journey. They change constantly. So I quit asking. I'm just like, okay, I know the difference between love and other, right? And so, but I got this one that I channel all the time that just keeps saying, just get in the damn boat. Just get in the boat, tuck in your arms and legs. We will take you on a journey. And when it's time for you to make a decision, when it's time for you to make a change, when it's time for you to use your masculine energy, you'll know. And you may not always make the right decision, but you'll know that too.
Yeah. And that's what I'm having to try and come to terms with, which does feel difficult where I am in my life, because I need to make a lot of personal decisions for my own road of having families and, you know, that kind of thing. And it's all very well just going, oh, well, this will have to flow as it's supposed to. But it's like, yeah, but I'm running out of time on certain levels. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, you can't base your life on the connection, but you also have to accept that it's something that is there, because when you try and run from it, that's when the universe really turns the screws and starts sending you all the signs and all this. And you just, you know, a lot of the callers that call me are like, this feels like a prison, this is a horror story. And I'm like, no, I understand. It really does feel that way, because it's like this has, you know, it's a Bermuda Triangle. It has no answer, it has no solution, kind of, you know. It's very and you know, I'm doing the course with the New World All-Star guy, and that is helping a lot just to understand. And I think so much of it is you've just got to bring your energy back to yourself, because you are the soul at the end of the day. As the divine feminine, you are the one that actually drives the soul, even though you don't feel like you have that power, because so much of this makes you feel powerless. And you just got to keep aligning with what you are supposed to be doing, and actually whatever they're doing is kind of irrelevant in that way when it comes to it. You know, not that they don't matter or that, you know, it's not important, but you
seems
can't
to be
let
a
it
delay.
derail.
What I've noticed, because like I said, I've known mine for 40 plus years, and I know him very intimately. We've almost gotten married. We've lived together. I've abandoned him. He's abandoned me. I probably don't know any other human being on this planet as well as I know him. And one thing I notice is that whatever I'm going through spiritually, I seem to notice there's a lag, but he goes through it as well in his own way, in his own time, and not exactly like I did. And I know that right now, because 4 years ago I went through a divorce, and I had to own the fact that I was staying in a toxic relationship because of my fear of speaking up for myself, and fear of abandonment, fear of failure, fear of just being alone too. And so, funny, I believe we're one soul having two different experiences. And so, being the feminine aspect of that, we go first, right? We're the upper chakras. And then the masculine goes later. And I believe right now his marriage is falling apart. His world's becoming very small. He's being forced to look at things that he was good at avoiding. And all I can really do right now is hold love and compassion for him, because I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt and the beer koozie. And I've dropped the anger and the resentment, and there's so much forgiveness and love in my heart and compassion. I'm like, oh my God, I know what it felt like. I know how you triggered me. I know how, I just know. I don't know how I know. People always say, how do you know? I don't know. I just know. Right. And one thing I know is that I believe it's his turn, and I believe that it took me 4 years, and I don't know how long it'll take him, but I'm going to be there. I'm going to be on the other side of that text. I'm going to be there on the other side of that phone call. If I run into him at a gas station, I may not show up the way his ego is hoping I will show up, but I will always mirror back to him exactly what I believe is the right thing. Righteousness, right? That's the alignment of all the chakras. It feels right, it smells right, it tastes right. All the senses are on board. Your heart's in alignment with it. Your mind's in alignment with it, even if it doesn't make sense, because it doesn't. There's nothing, like you said, it's like the Bermuda Triangle. There's nothing about it that makes sense. You want to fit it in a neat little box. You want to say, well, I'm in love with this guy, and this guy is just a spiritual connection, and then, vice versa. And it doesn't fit like that. It just doesn't. I can't even talk about it. It's so confusing. It just is. It's like, somebody says, well, what exactly? To sit down and try to talk to a person who's not a twin flame, we sound like we are absolutely insane. And that's why I started the podcast, because it's like the whole theme is you are not alone. Not just twins, but star seeds, light workers, people who are on the ascension journey, but not necessarily on it through a twin flame journey.
Yeah, it's so helpful to talk to you and to talk to other people, because I finally feel like, oh wow, this is so helpful to talk about it, because you can't someone who's not experienced. You really can't, because people will either tell you, oh, well, they're this awful person and you need to get away from them, which is impossible, or they'll say, well, maybe they're the one for you and you need to do this, and which you also know you can't do. So it's like, well.
Right. No, it's absolutely true. I've had both sides. I've had family members, they're like, oh, he's so toxic for you. He's just not, he's a narcissist. He never chooses you. He never shows up for you. And I'm like, yet every single time I've been in a place of need, he shows up. And he shines a light that helps me through, even if it's a painful one.
Yeah.
And so it's like, now when he shows up, I'm like, okay, what's next? Show me the truth, no matter what the cost, right? Show me the truth, no matter what the cost. It's either going to be a trigger or a validation, or, but it's always intentional. It's like spirit has a purpose. And so I'm kind of learning the whole surrender thing. I'm not real great at it, but I'm learning
Right.
to just get in the boat. I've been very, very divinely guided to move away, to walk away, to give him space, but to also be there authentically and without prejudice or judgment. And so I just try to do what my guidance, because I'm very guided. I don't know about you, but I am so guided. Like I almost instantly know exactly why the text came through, why it was the way it was, why it triggered me or why it triggered them. And then it's back to that the adept, right? You know, spirit shows me you become the initiate, right? Through the catalyst, the catalysm. And then you become the student, and then you become the adept, and it's practice, 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 practice.
Yeah.
And then eventually you become the mentor, where, you know, which is where I'm at right now. And in the mentorship, you're still becoming the adept, right? You're still practicing. And then maybe someday we'll be masters of this. I don't know. But the difference between a master and a student is about 1,000 failures, right?
Yeah, no,
So,
I definitely feel that. And I feel like it's I definitely get guided about it. I just, you know, sometimes it's just too painful to actually face the situation, but I'm learning not to push it away quite so much, because that's not going to help. And it's interesting to me that you seem to be in exactly the same headspace as me, that we've both come to the conclusion that that's the role that we've got to go into. So I feel like, once again, that's the right thing. Sorry, just to be a pain, do you mind if I just have a bit of a break? I get migraines from screens,
well,
so is it okay?
actually, if you'd like to wrap it up, we're already at an hour. And so if you'd just like to kind of wrap it up, if you'd like to come on again in the future and we can do a check-in and see, you know, where your career is going, maybe we could focus more on your mission work and yeah, just
Yeah,
invite you
because
back
I feel
again.
like that's something I can talk about. You know, what to do when you are in separation and how to ascend. That is something that I feel like I can talk with some authority on, because that's what I've done without really realizing it. And that, I'm so grateful that I have that, because if I've got to go through this journey, at least I've created that for myself. And I think for all your divine feminines, that is a really important part of this journey. You have to do this. And ascension is not going to be easy, and it's going to trigger you. But the interesting thing is that, because of what I went through with my twin, actually facing the highs and lows of my career, of which there have been many, I've been able to cope with it if I hadn't have had all of this, you
Right.
know. So there are reasons for it all, I guess. And so I'd be very happy to come back and talk
I
about
would
that
love to
side of
have you
things.
back again, and maybe we can have Ju join us then, and she can talk to you a little bit about, you know, the things that because we're very different. I partnered up with her because she's a divine feminine, but she has a lot of masculine, like she's mastered a lot of her masculine, and I'm just learning to master that part of me. I was so codependent, so distorted feminine, you know. I'm learning to empower myself. I'm learning that I don't need a man to create for me. I can create for myself. Um, but yet I'm also, you know, being taught by spirit that in that there's also the yielding, there's also the feminine, it not in distortion, but in the divine feminine of having an open heart, having a forgiving and loving nature without allowing people to vampire off your energy, and to be able to tend your own energetic garden in ways that I never could before, you know. And we have them to thank for that. So I guess despite how it turns out in the long run, you know, I'm sure we'll all be writing books or music or something in the future, because I believe that we are creating the new energy, the new template, and the twins are kind of the way showers, right? We go through it first, and then we're going to shine real bright so other people can find their way. And I do believe that your music, your mission is going to be part of that process, helping other people who are going through the awakening to just find their way to the healing that need to happen, because hurt people and healed people heal people.
Yeah.
And so I think all of our mission, regardless of the media that we use to do it, whether it's tarot or music, or because I'm a singer, kind of a songwriter. I've never really brought my music to anybody important, but I've definitely created it. And so I'm very, very happy to have met you. Today was our first meeting too. I hope we are friends, and you can reach out anytime. We're Soul Tribe. And I would like, when we end this call, which we're going to do here in a second, for you to send me all of your links, for your music links. You know, if you're on Spotify or iPhone or iTunes or whatever you're on. Also, any of your tarot readings, anything that you are using or creating to help heal yourself and the collective, I would love to have you share. And if you'd like to give a verbal shout out, you can do so right now.
Who am I verbally shouting out to? Sorry.
I said, if you'd like to give a verbal shout out to any of your media or your emails, anything you want to share. Music.
On YouTube, Livia Music, LIVIA Music, and type that into Google, and you'll generally find my Spotify and everything. Yeah, so I have an album out, and I'm working on my second album at the moment. So
I can't wait to hear it. I'm going to go right after we get off of here, and I'm going to go listen to it while I prepare my next reading. I've got like 3 of them I have to do today. So if you would, please send me links so that I can link you underneath the video. I'll link, you know, whatever you want to link. Just let me know if you've got Facebook or YouTube or whatever. And that way people can just click on it and find you and support you in all the ways that you need support in order to be on mission. And thank you for everything you do, because I know that this is not a journey for the light of heart or the faint of heart. I'm not sure. I guess our souls must have thought we were real badasses before we incarnated. We're like, I can handle that. Well, okay. Maybe not.
Oh, yeah, I often think that, actually. But no, thank you for having me here, and it's been great this meeting that we've had. Serendipity, is that the word, Sarah?
Yes, serendipity, and maybe we can exchange. Maybe we could do readings for each other, because I don't like to read for myself either, you know. And so, if we ever find ourselves in a situationship with, you know, our journey and need guidance, you know, feel free to reach out. You know, no charge. I'll help you. You help me. We'll help each other.
We'll get through it. We will get through it.
Okay.
Get through it.
Well, much love, and we will see you the next time you're ready to come on. Just let me know. Email me and Ju, and we'll get you scheduled.
Thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye, Liv.